History is full of underrated characters, fascinating people who are often ignored by historians simply because they happen to have lived alongside some historical giant. Think about Agrippa, overshadowed by Augustus, Parmenion under Alexander the Great, Belisarius under Justinian. And this unfair historical treatment can be said about certain coins as well. Today's video will fix one of these historical injustices. Let me present you to this little guy here, the Siliqua, a Roman coin struck for over 3 centuries, very important for Western monetary history, and a coin that still lives in our modern vocabularies, believe it or not. So let's get started. First, a little bit of historical context. We're in the 4th century AD. Constantine the Great is emperor and he's enacting an important monetary reform. He's changing Roman money. Around the year 310, he introduced the solidus. This was a pure gold coin weighing around 4.5 of our modern grams, and it became the main coin people used as a store of wealth during the late Roman Empire. It actually continued to play this role deep into the Byzantine period. The solidus was so successful that it was produced for nearly 1,000 years. It became very trustworthy due to its pure gold content and its consistent weight, becoming the standard coin for all major payments. Think about your taxes to the empire, what paid for the legions and the imperial administration, what you use for your savings, and any large transactions. These were done with solidi. But most coins in circulation were not made of gold, of course. They were bronze coins with a small amount of silver mixed in. I'm showing you one of these coins right now. And as you can see from its color, there isn't a whole lot of precious metal in here, which meant each individual coin had very little purchasing power, making them unsuitable for any minimally important payment. This created a kind of monetary gap. At the top, the empire now had a successful gold coin that circulated relatively widely and gave credibility to the monetary system. That in itself was a great success already after around a century of gold being mostly hoarded away. And at the bottom, there was still this mass of low-value base metal coins. So these Billion coins, that's the name of the bronze-silver alloy mix, they were useful for everyday transactions, but they could not easily connect this ordinary money to the high-value gold. There was this gap there. So the empire needed a bridge between gold and billion. Some trustworthy, high-quality, probably silver coin that could fill the space between small change and serious wealth. Not as valuable as gold, but it also had to retain the high purity of the silver. Otherwise, people would just look at this coin pretty much as a new billion denomination. It had to be made of high-quality silver. The solution was the Siliqua, also known as the keration. That's a good clue for us to look at the first coin of today. This lovely Silique was struck for Constantine around the year 335 at the city of Antioch. Now, 24 of these made 1 solidus, so this was a much more manageable amount of money, while still being way more valuable than any low-value billion coins. The Siliqua had a very respectable alloy of 90% pure silver, and it had around 3.4 grams in total weight, so it was a considerable chunk of change. The imperial treasury, that's important to keep in mind, it only accepted gold and silver, not the billion coins, for its payments. So you had to pay your taxes with only good quality precious metal coins, which generated a constant demand for these coins and helped keep them in circulation. As for visuals, what do we have here? Well, we have this lovely portrait of Constantine looking towards the heavens in a pose reminiscent of the old Hellenistic kings of old. Some scholars interpret these eyes to heaven coins as one of Constantine's first openly Christian messages on coinage, but I'm personally not entirely convinced of that. The diadem Constantine wears, the whole pose, it really looks like the Greek kings of the Hellenistic period in this coin. I mean, Constantine identified himself much more as a king than an emperor. I mean, he named himself the Augustus, but the Augustus, the emperor, he was traditionally a person much more down to earth, may I say, compared to the kings who were picked by the gods to rule. I would be actually curious to read what you think this design represents in the comment section. Another interesting feature, worthy of note, it's the fact that this obverse does not have any legends on it. It's just a portrait, making it a very clean design. You can really focus on the portrait, you don't have the pollution of the letters around it. I personally love these clean images. I wish Roman coins had more of this. As for the reverse, we have an image of a winged victory holding a laurel crown and a palm branch, both symbolizing military victories and the right to rule. According to Roman religion, Jupiter, the king of the gods, after he picked someone to become emperor, he would have his little messenger, the victory, to fly to this person with a laurel crown and the message that Jupiter had picked them to be emperor. That's why you will often see laurel crowns like this on imperial coins. It was one of the ultimate, one of the easiest to recognize symbols of authority. Around the goddess, we have some simple inscriptions. Constantinus Augustus, Constantine Emperor, very straight to the point. And finally at the bottom, a small mint mark. Sacra Moneta Antiochena, from the sacred mint of Antioch. As we move on to the next Siliqua, did you notice I've just mentioned one solidus was worth 24 silique? In the Greek-speaking part of the empire, the Siliqua was also called a keration. The keration was the name of the carob seed, because carob seeds were famous for having a fairly irregular weight. They ended up being used by Greeks and Romans as a small unit of measurement, of something very light, very small. One official keration was roughly 0.19, 0.2 of our modern grams. That means the silver contained in a siliqua was worth the equivalent of 1 keration of gold. You add 24 keratia together and you get the exact weight of a full solidus. This 1 to 24 equivalency has survived to our modern day. This is why gold purity is still measured in 24 parts total. You may have heard like this piece of jewelry is 22 carats, 20 carats gold. It's all about that. If all 24 parts are gold, we can call it 24 carat or 24 keratia gold, meaning pure gold, because it was connected to the idea of the solidus being divided into 24 parts. So let's have a look at this quite lovely Siliqua of Constantius II, one of Constantine's sons. Fairly dignified bust of the emperor here on the obverse, wearing his cape with a nice large circular fibula, a brooch, keeping the cape around his shoulders. This time he's wearing a diadem made out of little pearls. And in the case of this coin, we do have some legends. It reads Dominus Noster, Constantius, Pius Felix Augustus. So we have a few more titles here. I particularly find interesting the Dominus Noster at the beginning, meaning something like our Lord. Quite an authoritarian tone, as we can see, very different from the emperors of previous centuries. As for the reverse, remember I mentioned the laurel crown was one of the most common symbols of the divine right to rule? Well, now we have an enormous wreath dominating most of the design. Super elaborate. We can see the individual leaves around the length of the crown. At the top, there's some kind of like circular jewel thing tying the two branches together. And at the bottom, there also seems to be some kind of fabric. It's more like a little tube tying the two branches together. There's a lot of attention to this design here. And at the center, we have some more legends. This is a bit of a mouthful. At the top, we have Vota Triguinta and then Multis Quadraginta. This was the celebration of the emperor, serving the Roman Empire for 30 years, and his vows to serve 40 years, which Constantius sadly would not live to see fulfilled. And finally, at the very bottom, we have yet another mint mark, Sirmiensis Moneta, the mint of Sirmium, which was a frontier city. So this coin must have been issued to pay the salary of the troops stationed there. And to make a little pair with the previous coin, here we have a coin of his younger brother, Constans. That's a cool opportunity to show how the style of the Siliqua actually changed depending on where it was made and for whom it was made for. There's this erroneous assumption that all late Roman coins are artistically inferior compared to the denarii of previous centuries, and while there is indeed less realism in these portraits, I think all coins we've seen here all look actually remarkably different. Constantine has a certain shape to his face, Constantius has a little mullet on his hair, and Constant here certainly has his own style. There is a certain degree of individuality on each different person featured on these coins. So for Constance here, we have the emperor, once again wearing the military cloak. This was called the paludamentum, and once again it is held in place with a little circular fibula. And I love how in this particular example we can actually see some more tiny details. Like there's a part of the cuirass he's wearing poking through the fabric. If you look at the neck area, you might be able to see the plate there with like little dots, little bolts along its length. On his head, the royal diadem is also a little bit different. This one is actually quite complex. It's a mix of rosettes and laurel leaves with some kind of circular jewel at the tip, right around the area of his forehead. Quite a spectacular coin once again. And as for the legends, this one is more compact. It's just Constans Pius Felix Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we receive yet another visit from the goddess Victory. This one is pretty spectacular. I like how the volume of her legs can be inferred from how it projects over the fabric of her skirt. I mean, if you look at it on detail, you can clearly see the skirt is over it, but the contour of her legs can also be seen. Quite a nice display of like three-dimensionality on the part of the die engraver. So she holds once more the laurel crown, of course she would, and now she switches, on the other hand, the palm branch of Constantine for a tropaion. The tropaion was a military trophy. After a battle, assuming you won the battle, you would make this trophy with the captured like pieces of armor and weapons of the enemy, and you would give them as an offering to the gods, and you would leave it there on the battlefield. And finally, on the legends, let me call your attention to the legends here. It's an interesting opportunity to show you a cool quirk of the Latin language. So the legends starts with Victoria, that's easy to understand, and then we have two Ds, two Ns, we then have the abbreviation of Augustus, Emperor, so AVG, but the G is also duplicated. In the case these legends were making reference to a single emperor, we would have one D, one N, and one G, and it would read something like Dominorum Nostrorum Augustorum, so the victories of our Lord the Emperor. But since it has two of these letters, it makes reference to both emperors, Constans and Constantius. And it reads differently. It would be something like Victoriae Domini Nostri Augusti, so the victory of our lords the emperors. As you might have seen, despite all three coins we've discussed so far all being Siliquas, they're all remarkably different one from the other. And it's important to keep track of your collection. An organized collection is an essential feature of any successful numismatist, and this is where the sponsor of today's video, Numisvault, can help you. Here, let the creator himself explain you what Numisvault is all about.
Whether you have 10 coins or 10,000, Numisvault has the tools that grow with your collection, whether that be in trays that mimic your real-life collection, or various views that provide different perspectives. Share your coin, share your collection, share your article, share your trays, and share your website. Or just keep it private. Sharing permissions are fully customizable. Are you buying in euros but track your purchases in USD? Numisvault can help you track your purchases across any historical conversion rate to show you the statistics you probably don't want to know. Or just spend some time browsing websites from other collectors. Speed up adding that next coin by using the RIC number, Crawford number, price number, and many others. Generate auction catalogs that look as good as the ones you get in the mail. Create 2x2 printouts with QR codes so that you can scan and show the coin if it was shared. Check to see which emperors you're missing in a system that can tell the difference between Marcus Aurelius' Caesar and that as of Augustus. Whether you're collecting Byzantine bronze or high-end Greek, join the cataloging community on numisvault.com and use the new AI importer that can handle any CSV file to speed up things for you.
Okay, let's keep going with the Siliqua's big cousin, the Miliarensis. This was a significantly larger coin, as we can see in this pretty substantial example we have here, struck under Theodosius the Great. These were multiples of the Siliqua, generally weighing around like 4.5 grams. They're light and heavy variants. Some of them can go as far up as like 5 grams. And it stood above the Siliqua, right, as this larger, more prestigious silver denomination. Different from the Siliqua, however, the Miliarensis was a coin mostly for special occasions. It wasn't really like an everyday coin. It was money, of course, but it was only made for special situations. It was often closer to like a ceremonial coin, struck for special some things like imperial anniversaries, gifts to members of the court, and especially as donatives given to soldiers and officers. A Roman soldier could receive as much money as these special donatives from the emperor as they could in their normal salary. They in fact expected to receive them. If you as an emperor only paid them their salaries, there was a high likelihood that a revolt would erupt at some point. And for your average Roman soldier, receiving your payment in gold or silver, in like a solidus or miliarensis and siliqua, was very good. It gave you lots of reassurance. High-quality silver coins presented this very reliable value in your hands, far less vulnerable to the inflationary little games emperors could play as they meddled around with the silver content of the low-value Bilan coinage. Miliarenses like this one are rare and are often found in excellent condition, like this example, which is pretty much a mint state. That's the kind of coin you hoarded away for its value. Miliarenses can vary a lot in designs, but this particular example doesn't change much compared to the previous coins we've seen. It's just a larger version of it. We have the bust of Theodosius looking to the right. This time his diadem is made out of pearls, and he wears the combo paludamentum plus military cuirass once more. Pretty typical for imperial portraiture. As for the legends, we have Dominus Noster Theodosius Pius Felix Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we have a really cool full-body image of the emperor in full military attire, holding on one hand his shield and the other the labarum, the military standard. Really nice, impactful image of the emperor here. And the die engravers must have been instructed that this was a special coin issue because the level of detail is really, really high. I mean, just look at it, from the attention to detail on the parts of exposed musculature of the emperor to just the sheer number of folds, curves, and small details on the image. On the legends, Virtus Exercitus, so the virtue, the manliness of the army, we can see once more that this was likely a donative to the soldiers. It was like a little nudge to the army. And finally, at the very bottom, we have Roma Pecunia, the mint of Rome, where the coin was made. And just like the solidus, the Siliqua continued to be made during the Byzantine period. But silver was much less common in Byzantine coinage, especially if we compare it against the number of gold and bronze coins. In the Byzantine world, for important payments, people just kept using gold solidi and their fractions, and for everyday life, they used the vast bronze coinage the Byzantine period is famous for. Silver sat in like a little narrow space at this time. Siliqua and their fractions still existed, but they belonged mostly to small parts of the imperial administration, like the officials, some part of the payment to the military, and mostly ceremonial contexts. And as a result, they are quite rare today. So I also brought an example of a Byzantine Siliqua for us today. This piece was issued for Justinian the Great. This is actually a full-size Siliqua, but Justinian also issued half Siliqua, which I think are the most common ones, and quarter Siliqua. And so what do we have here? An image of the emperor, looking right, similar to the previous coins. I mean, everything is still here, right? He's still showing the military cloak and the fibula, but interestingly, look at his head. He's wearing some kind of crested helmet. The same helmet we typically see on his gold solidi, but on the gold coin, he's often seen facing us, the viewer, while here in this coin, he's looking sideways. As for the legends, we have Dominus Noster Justinianus Perpetuus Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we have a similar scene to the Miliarensis, the full body image of the emperor, but here we have some remarkable differences on his regalia. Instead of the standard and the shield, he holds a spear and the globe cruciger. It was kind of like a globe with a cross on top of it, which represented Justinian, or just like the emperor's, God-given right to rule the world. Very strong change here to a more openly Christian imagery. And that's reinforced by the very clear halo on his head, yet another symbol of like divine anointment of the emperor. So interesting to see the Christian message now fully integrated on the coins. And as for the legends, it reads Gloria Romanorum, so the glory of the Romans. Pretty standard imperial message. Interesting. It's written in Latin. I mean, the language of the Eastern Empire was Greek, but here we have the official language, at least of the imperial court at this time, which was still Latin, but this would change soon. And finally, at the bottom, wrapping up this coin, the abbreviation of Constantinopolis, where the coin was made, the imperial capital. And I couldn't wrap up this video without talking about a very interesting, may I say, spiritual successor of the Siliqua, the hexagram. This coin was introduced by Emperor Heraclius around 615, at one of the most desperate moments in Roman history, when the empire was pretty much fighting for survival against the Persians. To produce it, Heraclius enacted an emergency decree in which the church gave over to the emperor all of its silver. Think about church plates, any kind of religious regalia, crosses, and this silver was used to make coins to help fund the war, because there wasn't enough gold available anymore. The imperial treasury was all spent, and the result are these large, kinda ugly silver coins. Kinda heavy as well, around 6.5 grams. Most hexagrams look rough like this, with this irregular shape. Actually, this one that I'm showing you right now looks remarkably round for the type, as these were just made in a hurry. Imagine you gathering a whole bunch of church silver plates, flattening these pieces of silver, cutting it just in the right weight, and stamping it with the imperial image. It was really done in a hurry. This particular example we have here was issued for Heraclius and his son, Heraclius Constantine, between 615 and 638. And well, this isn't a very pretty thing. Fortunately, the drawings will help us make sense of what's going on here. So we have the full body, seated images of both the emperor and his son, both sitting on a throne. They also once again hold the globe cruciger. Around them, we have the legends in this funny transition between Latin and Greek. By this time, Latin was on its way out, but Greek hadn't yet taken a foothold on something as traditional as coinage. So we have a phrase in Latin with a few Greek characters like sprinkled in. It reads Dominus Noster, so our Lord, Heraclius et Heraclius Constantine. And on the reverse, keeping up this hurried appearance of the whole thing, we have just a single image of a cross on top of an altar. I particularly love the legends for the reverse. It reads, Deus adiuta Romanis, literally meaning God help the Romans, like a direct ask for divine intervention. You can really feel that they were desperate. And God apparently granted them some help because the Byzantines managed to survive this war and come up to terms with the Persians. Actually, the Byzantines, they certainly had lots of situations during their 1,000 years of history where they could have collapsed earlier than they did. Maybe they were, in some moments, helped by the hand of God. And here we have it, the Siliqua, this fascinating silver coin you should absolutely pay more attention to. So I hope you enjoyed yet another episode. Remember to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel and my newsletter to receive exclusive channel content. Alright, happy collecting, and I'll see you soon. Let me give a special thank you to all of my amazing channel members and Patreons for their generous support. This channel would not be the same without your help. And if you would like to be part of this list, have early access to my videos when they are uploaded to YouTube, and a series of other perks, make sure to check out my Patreon page and my members tab on YouTube. Thank you very much.